Minnesota. I'm the chair of the IMU's Committee on Electronic Information and Communication, and I'll be moderating the panel. The panelists are listed there, but there is one last-minute addition that I'll explain during my opening remarks. So I will let the panelists introduce themselves as I call on them. The idea is that each panelist will talk for 5 minutes, and then the remaining hour or whatever time we have left will be we'll invite questions, comments, and suggestions from the audience. This is a panel about the World Digital Mathematics Library. This is a vision that has existed, certainly began gathering steam in the late 90s. The IMU was a very early proponent. This is a library. The vision is to encompass all of the world's mathematics literature in searchable, linked, computable, you name it, form. And we'll hear some of the ideas about the vision for the mathematics library as the panelists discuss it. In 2006, the IMU Executive Committee and General Assembly approved a statement endorsing the Digital Math Library, a vision for the future. The material I refer to and some of the panelists refer to, there is background material for the panel which is available on the IMU CEIC website. So if you click on the mathunion.org and click on CEIC, under resources, there are resources for all 3 panels. This is the 3rd of the 3 panels. Although this vision has existed for quite a long time and endorsed in 2006, the realization is taking agonizingly long, but there have been some very significant advances and initiatives in the last couple of years, and the idea is to use this panel and this meeting to finally set in motion the structure for realizing this World Digital Mathematics Library, where mathematicians and people who applied math can come and search the literature, historical literature, modern literature, and with the literature online, new applications will come of this. So following the vision, there have been a number of local initiatives. I can point particularly to the European Digital Mathematics Library, MathNet in Russia, several of the Eastern European countries, Czechoslovakia and Poland, have assembled digital libraries. So there are local digital libraries that exist and are kind of proofs of the concept, but the global library still remains to be realized. In 2012, the CEIC was asked by the Sloan Foundation in the US to organize a meeting at the National Academy of Sciences. Over 50 participants of various aspects of the digital library assembled for this meeting, and there is a lot of material on the meeting website, which, as I said, you can get to through the CEIC site. Combined with the meeting in 2012, the Sloan Foundation also commissioned a committee to write a report developing a 21st century global library for mathematical research. This was issued by the U.S. National Research Council and is also available on Archive, ARXIV. In even more recent news, so this was in March of 2014, March this year, in even more recent news, on Sunday there was an invited meeting by a number of people directly interested in the digital library. There were 13 in attendance, 8 called in remotely, and as a result of this meeting, so the idea was to try to build on this momentum, set up an organization that will be able to come up in short notice with an organizational plan and a proposal for how this can be realized. So an outcome of this meeting was a small working group that was assembled, and Patrick Ian of Math Reviews, who is at the end, is the additional panelist, and we thought that it would be very good for Patrick to give some discuss a bit about this working group. What we really need from the mathematical world at large is the support and the advertising of this initiative as a way that we can go to the funding agencies, to the community, to the government agencies, to the private organizations, and finally realized the stars seem to be aligning at the moment, and it would be a shame not to take advantage of this. So with this introduction, I will have each panelist introduce themselves and give a short presentation. So I will start with Ingrid Daubechies.
Okay, so I will say very little because I'm not an expert at all on this material, but I'm very enthusiastic about it, and I do really hope that things will take off. And I will, the remaining months of my presidency, if at some point I can help to, needed to put a little drop of oil in some gears that are threatening to clog, I will try to do that. That's about my role.
Okay. Let me remind the others, Ingrid, of course, needs no introduction.
Oh,
But let me,
sorry, I'm Ingrid Bouche. I'm the president of the IMU and an ex officio member of CIC, and that's how I came involved in it. I'm sorry.
I'll remind the others to introduce themselves. So let me secondly ask Rajeeva Karandikar.
So I am Rajeeva Karandikar, Director of Chennai Mathematical Institute, India. And I am also not an expert on this theme, but I have given quite a bit of thought and have talked to a lot of people. So these are some of the views I have formed based on these discussions. So Professor Olver, the moderator, had given us a few talking points, and let me first look at those. So one of this was, how do we define WDML? So this is my definition, or my suggestion for a definition, that it should aim to be a one-stop virtual place for all the needs of a mathematician as far as literature is concerned, where she or he can search and retrieve archival material, find researchers currently working on similar themes, or other areas in mathematics that are using research on her or his theme of interest. So typically this is what we try to search and spend a lot of time. This should be very easily doable. Other question was that what should be the user base that should be targeted, and I thought that it may be good to start with a modest beginning and then expand the scope. And so I thought that to begin with, research mathematicians and PhD students in mathematics, or the wider slate of mathematical sciences. Eventually it should include all the users of mathematics, so scientists, engineers using mathematical results for R&D, students, historians, the educated citizens. That would be our main, the end point when we reach. It should be for general public too. Now, a little bit on what are the main features expected from WDML. So, of course, first is search and retrieval of original content permanently available. I have put permanently in bold. So, what this means is that today a journal website may make it available their past issues, but that is not sufficient, because change of policy, change of that publishing house gets acquired by someone else, and this policy can change and it can go down again. So some mechanism that the archival material is permanently available. This was also stressed yesterday in the discussion on publication. Of course, we would like it at no cost, or at least at a minimal cost to the user or the end user institution. Currently the costs are too high and prohibitive, and that is one of the reasons for yesterday's discussion about discussing future of education, publication, etc. This should include journals and research monographs, and maybe later other books too, but to begin with, journals and research monographs, and should be able to provide a user names of people working in an area, or should be able to provide to user names of people who use the work in a given area. So these are the broad expectations from a WDML from a user perspective, maybe naive, but from a user perspective. Another talking point suggested by Professor Olver was that how can the community engage with existing stakeholders, defined as publishers, societies, universities, funders, etc., so as to keep the central WDML entity lean enough to be sustainable. Again, that's a very important issue. We can't start an initiative just so that after a few years we run out of funds and there is nothing to sustain. So we must build a sustainable system. And first is to get mathematics departments or institutes to participate in setting up of a distributed WDML and avoid major investment in hardware. Could be to impress on publishers that things are going to change, they like it or not, and they have to adjust to lower revenues. Once we get started and see some traction and success, the funding agencies should see the benefits and we can persuade them to fund the WDML activity going forward. Now, to make this WDML initiative successful, we should also simultaneously address these 2 points. First one is how to bring the archival material generated over centuries into the digital math library. If we don't do that, we will not get traction and we won't have too many users doing it if we only go forward. We must bring in the backward. And second thing is also very important, which is to ensure that henceforth the research work that is essentially supported by public funds, so namely governments, foundations, maybe students' fees, whatnot, but that does not become copyright holder of publishers, copyright of publishers. That is what has been going on for last 70, 80 years, and somehow this should stop, and it should stop soon. So, about archival data, here are a few points I have thought of. That IMU, as was told by Professor Olver, IMU has been trying for many years to advocate free access to mathematical material after a reasonable time lag, a moving wall. But this advice has not been followed by many publishers. So, as was mentioned yesterday by Professor Rajeeva in the panel on publishing, it is now time to act. We have been talking for many years, time to act. So, I suggest that IME should set out a deadline, say 31st December this year or July 1 next year, by which all publishers must put research articles published in their journals that are, say, older than 5 years, accessible to all users, and hand over the soft copy to a DML to ensure that the material is permanently available. The IME should recommend to the mathematical community not to cooperate with publishers that do not agree by that date. So this is the action I am suggesting. We cannot force anyone, but we can persuade and now a little bit stronger. So the mathematical community should be urged not to be members of editorial boards or reviewers for journals of such publishers. This would be a strong step. The date is not important, we could have even a little later date, but some action plan should be thought of. The other thing is that the mathematical community as a whole, led by the IME, should insist that the metadata on content, subject, author citations, etc. be openly licensed by their providers rather than considered proprietary, as is the present custom of MathSciNet and Zentrabra. So this is a thought I have taken from a writing of Jim Pittman, who has been active in this area, and I very much endorse this, and this we must insist. Perhaps the IMU and CIC could first talk to major societies which are publishing journals, take them into confidence and agreement, work out these things, and then give ultimatum to commercial publishers. So we do not want to lose the support of the societies of mathematicians who take this. We have to take them along, so we have to talk to them. Now the other point which I mentioned, that somehow we need to ensure that from now on work supported by public funds doesn't get copyrighted by private players. So firstly, I wholeheartedly endorse the proposal by fellow panelist and IMU President, Professor Daubechies, that editorial boards could become a society and sign an agreement with the current publisher, who should transfer ownership of the journal to the society, and at the same time the society asks the current publisher to continue to publish the journal. She has written this in a blog on this issue, and of course, as she pointed out, one editorial board alone cannot do this in isolation, but collectively, if many leading journals do this, it will put pressure on publishers to agree. I think we should try to talk about this and maybe persuade a few editorial boards to start this. Another point which I feel strongly about is that IMU should recommend to the mathematician community that before submitting any work for publication, they should put the paper on an archive or any of the archives and license the work under Creative Commons license or a variant thereof, as is done by the open software community. This will ensure that publishers no longer get an exclusive copyright over the articles even submitted to their journal. There will be resistance to this issue too, but that's another front we must open. IMU or another non-profit agency could also start an initiative to e-publish books. All the talk is about journals, but we could also address books issues, especially the research monographs. Most authors who write research monographs do not do it for making money and would be happy to put their books in public domain from day one. Rather than wait for some illegal site to put up a PDF copy of that, they could have it available day one. So I would conclude by quoting Professor Olver, who had written, I think, 3 years ago, that the time is ripe for radical rethinking of traditional academic model for scholarly communication within mathematicians. If we are not properly engaged, the future will be decided for us and almost certainly will not be to our liking. So 3 years have passed since he said that, and I think more than ever we must decide soon. Thank you.
Thank you. The points that Rajeeva addressed were in the panel brief, which I had forgotten to hand out before we began the panel, but copies were being handed out. Next, I'd like to introduce Zhang, who will tell us about initiatives in China. And please introduce yourself.
I am very different from all of you. You are mathematician. I am a librarian. Work for digital library, China Digital Library. So today I'm honored to attend this meeting. I want to introduce our project, Panelist. It's about 3 points. First is about Panelist. Second is framework of digital library construction. And third is resource theory. Maybe other mathematicians, what they considered is more about digital libraries definition. But what I consider is more about operating detailed things. So maybe what I introduced is more difficult to you to understand. Panelist means China Academic Library Information System. It's one of the public service systems for higher education. It's founded by Chinese government and under the leadership of the Ministry of Education. It operated from 1998. It's a nationwide academic library consortium. Its goal is to promote, maintain, and improve resource theory, and to organize libraries to build China Academic Digital Library, and to provide information services at a high academic level for teaching and research, to extend cooperation nationally and internationally. We have 3 development periods. Different periods have different tasks. Every period have different financial support. In phase 3, we have 200 million RMB financial support by our government. Now we are applying for phase 4. And now we have regular financial support every year. It's in order to maintain constructed system run and maintenance. Our services member library is more than 2,000, and our resources is up to 200 million. Panelist's main services include this. One is Yidu. Yidu is easy to read, academic search engine. Yidu is e-getting. It's about interlibrary law and document delivery system services. The E1 is e-ask, is reference services. This 3 is for end user, is reader. Is for reader. From 4 to 7 is for library. This is our portal, our Panelist EU China digital library portal. The user can search our 200 million resources, and from this website, he can know who has digital full text, who has print digital, full text, and how can he get the item. Second, I mainly introduced the framework of digital library. Generally, the digital library has 4 layers. First layer is basic infrastructure. The second layer is resources layer. Basic infrastructure include host, server, database, storage, and middle software. And the layer 2 resources include resource database, resource book, report, course, bibliographic, and navigation of all resources. Layer 3 is applications, including support applications such as data management, and service applications such as document delivery and inter-library load, and etc. And the layer 4 is for end user. It's a portal faced for our users directly. So it is other panelists talked. Our target user is who? Who is our target user? Our target user decide our portal's functions. And standards, many kinds of standards run through the whole process of constructing digital library, including metadata schema, technical schema, and many interoperability standards. And maintainers include data maintaining and system maintaining. After the building of digital library, maintenance is the most important thing. And organization and management is a long-term essential work. All service and development of digital library should be governed by a management group. This is generally a framework of digital library. This is our Panelist digital library system structure. The first layer is basic infrastructure. We have servers, storage, security facility, and working software, database, and operating system. The layer 2 is a resource layer. The resource layer include the library catalog and the knowledge base and etc. The applications include support application and service application. Support application, we have unified authorized center and unified data exchange center. And application service include EU China and interlibrary low load and full text service and communication service and etc. The fourth layer is phase 2 user is about Kelly's Digital Library Portal and mobile digital library app. Also, just now I talked standards, many kinds of standards. We have a very thick a book about standards and maintenance and organization and service management. This is our Kelly's digital library structure. Then I introduced Kelly's resources. The resource book, we have 100 million books, and Chinese mathematics books about how to say,
150,000.
yeah, million. Total books about mathematics about that data. And the journal, we have this data. And mathematics journal is 228. And other language mathematics journal, we have 1,100 mathematics. And OA, Open Access Mathematics Journal is about 600. So total of journals about mathematics is about 1,000, more than 1,500 journals. Journal articles is more than 100 million. At the dissertation, we also have near 50,000. And our resources come from our library member. Kelly's member contribute all their metadata and holdings to Kelly's. And a reader can get the resources by downloading full text, document delivery, and interlibrary load. We provide 3950 protocol and many kinds of API. A is application perform interface. We also other resources in China. NST, National Science and Technology Library, it also have near 100 million resources. And we have two largest public library, National Library of China. This is in Beijing, and Shanghai Library in Shanghai. Teachers and students get items by interlibrary loan from public library. Also, other resources in China, database and Xinkai, they have old Chinese journal full text and a function database. They are. Not only we collect all the bibliographic records of member library, and also integration with most of the bibliographic system in China. And we made many service integration to improve service quality and capability. We use many applications of advanced technology, for example, cloud computing and etc. And expanding resources sharing international. And we also have a cooperation with Korea. Korea has the similar system, like Kelly's. Its name is Kelly's, Korea Education and Research Information Services. We have cooperation, interoperate with them. And Japan, we also have a cooperation with it. This is our introduction. Thank you.
Next, let me introduce Gert-Martin Greuel.
Okay, I can see it. So, I'm talking, sorry. I will concentrate mainly on one point.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry, forgot about it. My name is Gert-Martin Greuel. I'm a professor at the University of Kaiserslautern, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Zentralblatt Math. And because of the second affiliation, I'm here. And I like to talk a little bit of one specific view after I give a general account. Let me say, this is not the most sexy panel. However, it's very important, I think. So therefore, I think we have to go to the details and have to go to the difficulties and also address difficulties. Maybe wishes too, but also difficulties. So I have to move this. So when we talk about the digital mass library, we have to talk about mathematical knowledge. And this is a very complex system, but it's still primarily based on scientific publications. But that's not all. Other sources like mathematical databases and software become more important. Mathematical knowledge may be considered as a continually growing, huge building which is necessary that each floor is reached and no stone is lost. That's not at all other sciences the same. And the mathematics research, therefore, the literature plays a very special role due to the timeliness and validity of its achievements that is mainly preserved in the published scientific literature. Since mathematical knowledge does not become obsolete, it's therefore necessary for the researching mathematician as well as for the users of mathematical methods to have access to the entire mathematical literature. The published mathematical literature is the main starting point for the World Digital Math Library, but it should be open, and we should keep in mind that's not all when we talk about mathematical knowledge, and in future there might arise even more and other sources, and we have to think about that already now. Now, okay, what do we need for WDML? First, of course, the mathematical literature must be digitized, and which is not, but the big amount has been already digitized, so that's good. But there's also bad news, because this has been done by different sources, commercial and non-commercial providers, so we have to cope with this difficulty. We need, of course, technical standards for making digital mathematical literature accessible online. There exist different formats for data, metadata, and this is organized in a different way by different providers under different access conditions, and all this has to be taken into account. The architecture, as I said already in the beginning, for making this mathematical literature and knowledge in general available in the future, we have to think about when creating an architecture that it's not just having access to the digitized mathematics, also to some kind of semantic tools which we would like to later on put onto that body we have already now available, and to use it in more sophisticated ways to come. And at this point, maybe you see already that's a big challenge. And when you think about how much it would cost, I was actually surprised. We had a meeting with Steve Bortram, and he said, we're talking about $100 million project. And that's not something I think can be done just on a voluntary basis. And we have to think about it, maintaining it. What are the major problems? One, of course, is the content. What has to be included, what not? What is mathematics? There are border sciences like biology, physics, medicine, and so on, but also applications, computer science. What is the initial format we need to agree with just to have features for global representation from one point of view? This was already mentioned, searching and computing. There are maybe copyright issues, and probably will. My personal view is we must address the commercial publishers from the beginning on, and we cannot expect that they give their content for free, and that is completely unrealistic. So what we can maybe expect, that there's a moving wall, or so that behind that moving wall this will be available from the beginning. But if we keep them out, we keep out the very best, some of the very best of the mathematical literature. So therefore, from my point of view, we have to talk to them and to see how we manage. Archiving is another point, is not the same as having something online and to put it in some server. Archiving requires much more details and much longer term thinking. And of course we need a business model and long-term funding. Here you see the challenge is also the growth of the mathematical literature. You see the publications in ZB Math, and don't believe, I mean, the last thing when it goes down, this is old slide, sorry, I had no real ones. This was in the middle of 2012, but the final I cannot reach it, 2012, there was about 120,000 publications per year. And you see how this is developing, and a library, a digital world library, has to cope with this increase of the literature. Here you see the same curve, similar curve for the preprints in the archive, and it's even going steeper, but that might depend on the archive is new and more people put it on it. So nevertheless, we see that it's just growing, and there's, at the moment, we do not see any flattening of that curve. So finally, I would talk about the reference databases, potential access infrastructure. You know, I'm editor-in-chief of ZB Math, and I like to recall the first EIC requirement. They mention explicitly each article should include a separate list of references with links to the indexing database, mathematical reviews, and Zentralblatt. So if this will happen, these two reviewing and abstracting databases must be in the boat. Reference databases have already several advantages. They provide identifiers for the indexed mathematical literature. They have complete mathematical literature available. They have, which is important, high quality and well-structured metadata, math-specific search options. That makes a difference to Google. Yeah, I mean, Google is generic for everything and doesn't care so much about mathematics. That's not the most important thing they think of. But this is here, this is secured, and this is homogeneous. Exclusive to mathematical literature, there's little noise, there's semantic content analysis, there's a math subject classification, keywords, abstract reviews, linking of information, for instance, with full text if available, references, author disambiguation, author profiles. I think the author profiles, something has to go also maybe to this library finally. The reference data are already engaged, I want to mention that. They decide continuously, for instance, what to index. Every day, or basically, we have to decide what will be, if there is a new journal, will we index this or not. This decision, what is included, that could at the beginning, at least they could rely on the work of these two databases. Development of metadata schemes for mathematical publications is underway. The maintenance of the MSC, so Mass, Sinet, and Zentralblatt just agreed for the new MSC 2020, how to make a working plan on that. And we are pilot partners for the use of methods for publishing presentation of mathematical knowledge, for instance, the use of Panelist presentation format. So this is, I think, one of the starting points which could be kind of core service for the future WDML. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me next introduce Thierry Bouche.
Hello, I am Mr. Panelist. You're not the only one.
So I'm Thierry Bouche from France, mathematician at Institut Fourier and director of Seoul Math, which is a very small unit that is very much involved in publishing and digital libraries and mathematics. So I will try to be fast. So just to set up a bit, okay, I'm very for discussion, so maybe I should say faster. I like this citation from John Lasser, which you can read yourself by yourself now, and which is just a general setting in which the thing of DML takes place. Mathematicians write things so that later on people can use it and exploit that. It's not in the logic of And another point I wanted to start with is, which is maybe my answer to what is DML. It's a remarkable colleague for more than 10 years ago now, showing on the left you have the Nudam as it was on its first posting it's on the Wayback Machine, and it is now we have more than 60 series, etc. At that time we had 2 journals, one of them serious, and already, okay, the answer was, well, why don't we have just everything managed that way and available that way? That is my intention of the DML. We should have everything available that way. So here, well, I'm just repeating what Gert-Martin said, so I will pass it. And said that the only thing, well, I think it's sorry. What is different? Not so much thing. So the point is, we need a reference side library just to have all these breaks in the beginning. And this is more or less what we had with paper library. And currently, we don't have this digital library. We are now in a digital world. And there are so many opportunities to have new possibilities with interact and find information now, thanks to the digital media, that it's time to switch. Yes, my personal preference to the slide is that he raises problems that I will try to propose solutions. So we recently finished a project, UDML, which is the European Digital Mathematics Library, which is the first non-local, national or small project that has been done in this area. And so it was a relatively small project in this context, funded by the European Commission. It lasted 3 years for a budget of 1.6 million euros, which is not such a small amount of money, but and you see it amounted to more than 40 years line to, well, cost more than 40 years line. So it's finished in January 2013, and since then, more or less, the site is frozen, nothing happened. And we have built something that is called the UDML Initiative, and this is a consortium made out of co-partners of the project, plus some that didn't partner in the complete project but have joined afterwards. And the intention is to restart the activity to, for instance, fix the stupid problem that the website currently has, and to go ahead. But for the time being, this project, this initiative is just a club of people with goodwill and no results, no dedicated results. So it's the previous slide. You have the front page of the website and typical notice for record, where you see that we do have references, we do link when we can to material and stuff like that, and we do also have internal links. I will see this. And so it was a list of results. One of the important results, I think, is this one, which is not technical at all. It is what we decided we should adopt as a policy regarding the content to be eligible in UDML and partners to be eligible to partner with us and provide content to us. So the definition of the content is UDML content is scientifically validated and formally published in pilot form. So we are really, we act as a library, as a backend to the publishing system. We don't intend to do anything, well, I mean, we are not a competitor to the publishing system at all. We just intend to get what is published and selected by referees, etc., and to get it as it has been published without any modification. The digital content is physically hosted at one of the partner institutions. It is a very important condition which completely is in sync with what has been said before about the fact that things should be commonly available. If content is contributed to that library, the fact that the publisher vanishes, goes bankrupt, or changes policy should not have no impact on the collection. It's a library. You have to think library, not digital service and things like that. And the last condition is, once again, only we agree to partner with publisher, not as a black archive, but the thing should become accessible from the third party, from the library, in a reasonable, after a reasonable timeline, which we think should be no more than 5 years, and which is once again perfectly in line with the recommendation that the CIC and the EU intend to adopt. So just two last things. Lessons learned from that project. Well, it's a very small subset, but and the one I thought in advance I could review now. First, when you see the enormous, the large amount of money and the enormous quantity of manpower used in VDML, and when you see the website, you might be disappointed. I think that this is a byproduct of the networking effect. Such project has to have many partners, etc. And there is, well, it's not the most efficient way to go. And I think the most efficient way to go would be to have a core partner located, a core institution that holds a core team, and that really goes ahead and is dedicated to such a project. That is more or less one of the recommendations from the MRC report that I released. The second thing was, well, so in this digital library business, we didn't face any strong problem with all the basic digital library things, and even the linking, for instance, is now fully production grade, etc. We do have a matching interface so that if you come with a written citation from a paper that you have just copy-pasted and you put it in the box, you get the link if the paper is there. We have a number of things that are working, and to work, we just need things in the, before writing to the library, a number of things that many existing digital content owners are not able to provide now. So mainly the technology, the kind of thing we have to do is well understood, there are solutions, it works. We are stuck to our 6% just because we stopped working at the end of the project. We can go, well, yes, the MC is mathematical purpose, the whole literature that should be sit in that library eventually. UDML is about 6%, which is not zero, that's still far from the goal. I think we can go quite easily from 6% to 30% just by forgetting the view in UDML and partnering with projects that are technology, that comply more or less with our technical requirements and that have the technology and the resources that to be able to create the links. More response, I think, about Project Euclid, or many others. There are also projects in Japanese. I don't know for Korean. I know there are tools in Korea and that they have been digitized. We need to join. And of course, it seems to me that the most pressing demand from mathematicians is to scale to 1, which means everything that but. And the other remark maybe you have time to do, but I was digressing, so I go to the next slide, which is my last one. Well, beyond for the WDM that you put in now, and the next steps, just things that I wanted to point out, and maybe some of them are provocative that we are here to provoke. So I think the archive should be secure, although most things that would put it at, well, the permanent the sustainability, etc., at risk. And so I really view it as it should be distributed. It should be a worldwide partnership. It should be also a partnership of different kinds of partners. And it should also get funding and resources from various kinds of sources. One important point for me is that correctness matters to math. And maybe we are different from other sciences in this respect. By the way, we shouldn't, but at least in math, when something is written in some way, when some formula or some theorem has been proved somewhere, we can do things afterwards, and these things that we can do with them, for instance, OCR, whatever, rewriting of the text, etc., can be useful to, for instance, for retrieval features, or to create new paths in the literature, or whatever. But we should always do this transparently so that people can go back to the sources and check. And the last thing is that this goes up to, I think that if we reach 30% of the points, we already have something that will be the daily work, the tool for the daily work of many mathematicians worldwide. And so we are not doing a one-shot project or whatever. We have to go in the long term and to have something that runs something about it. And so we don't not depend on very short-term funding.
Next would be Patrick Ian.
My name is Patrick Ian. I recently retired after just under 3 decades working as a mathematician editor for the Mathematical Reviews division of the AMS, which brings you MathSite after positions in the UK, US, Holland, and Germany. At Math Reviews, I was heavily involved in the transition to tech, and also later in the revision and modernizing of the math subject classification to the MSc2010 as it is now and available as a linked data set. But being at Math Reviews, that means I've probably seen more mathematics going by than most of you, and probably understood less. However, I have been co-chair of the World Wide Web Consortium's math working group for more than 10 years, and we have brought you MathML, mathematics markup language for all your mathematical markup needs. And one of its many authors and an overall editor. But MathML is now a recognized part of HTML5, and we hope it will soon be an ISO standard. So naturally, I've been interested in questions of mathematical knowledge management for years. Now, at the first ICM in 1897, there was a session under the chairmanship of Peano concerned with questions of how to encode mathematical knowledge. He was intending to register it all, and indeed it was in connection with such efforts that he developed his axioms for the natural numbers. Then again at the 1928 ICM in Bologna, there was an active discussion of how to provide comprehensive bibliographic resources from mathematics to everyone. Now the IMU again sees the possibility of realizing a current dream of a global digital math library. It seems to me the adjective digital is important here, as it is the new digital technologies that allow better access to the resources of mathematical knowledge than ever before. We're, as somebody put it, I think, in the presence of transformative technology, and we can capitalize on it to everyone's benefit. I can imagine that in 16th century Europe, or even earlier in 14th century Korea, when printing from metal type was a brand new technology, people saw the possibilities of the new forms of book for the recording and dissemination of knowledge. That they were right, we all know, and that sort of opportunity is open again to us now. I think the adjective global is important too. We all think of the truths of our subject as global, independent of location in the world. We think of ourselves as a worldwide community, well demonstrated by a number of countries here. And global digital math library can have a global reach as a result of the digital technology mentioned, particularly the internet. It will be a shared global good. We can hope for global support for the idea and expect that there can be contributions to a global digital math library from all over the world. It provides benefits all over the world. The earliest mathematical artifact, something to be from Ishango in the Congo, and perhaps this GDML can help that occur again. IMU President Ingrid Daubechies and Chair Peter Olver of the CEIC took the initiative to work towards such a GDML through consultations with a broad expert group that culminated in the report that Peter mentioned from a workshop about 2 years ago, which is available through the CEIC. Now they're setting up a small working group of 8 persons, which I'm the chair, which has been given the task of making, by the end of this year, some concrete proposals for work setting up GDML. Then the resources can be found, so to speak, virtually, to break ground on building of GDML. The working group represents a variety of backgrounds and interests and is about as international as 8 persons can be, if you take into account where their careers have carried them. They're united in the belief that there are opportunities for building a GDML to serve the math community and disseminate mathematical knowledge as widely as needed, and wish to make that start happening now. Of course, the working group will be looking for the expertise from the community that's there, from the community about 8 squared in size that Ingrid and Peter have already been consulting, as well as many others. And the activities of the working group will be reported through the CEIC website. We'll be happy to have feedback through that, for instance. We expect that realizing a GDML will naturally involve both the academic and business mathematical communities and collaboration with those who have served it well for a long time. Very importantly, the publishing business worldwide. But the working group's goal is to get GDML projects defined and started in comparatively short order. I see essentially 4 facets to this current initiative. There's a sort of community aspects of trying to make sure that the community believes in this and that it's trying, that the effort is trying to satisfy the community's needs. There's the literature aspect, which in some sense is already somewhat understood, that UDML, Chinese, and so on, efforts are already in place. They need unifying. And going from 6% to 30% or more, you know, involves things that are somewhat understood. They need doing. The knowledge management aspects are more speculative, but they should be started now. And then there are the administrative aspects, as Zhang mentioned, and others, that you have to set up an organization to maintain and organize all this. These are all discussed in the NRC report. The working group is there to make concrete what's been suggested on all four fronts. Now, after all the earlier speakers' remarks, I should be appalled, probably, at the size of the task. But the other part of the exercise is for me to be, with those people mentioned, trying to do something about it. Some parts of the GDML require work that's understood and has already been done in part, but it just is going to take a lot more time and effort to complete those aspects. Other parts require serious investigation and prototyping, which also takes time, even nowadays. And although the general ideas may seem clear, the point about the working group is it's made up of members who think now is the time to realize the new opportunities for such a global digital national library. And we'll try to be starting.
Let me open it up to the audience for questions or comments. Let me just ask that you try to be brief so as many people as possible can give input. Let's see, let's start there. Please identify yourself.
Yes, from Economics Superior. The question which has been mentioned in the first talks about copyright is very important because how you retrieve the work, our work, because we have given our copyright away. A suggestion, but which requires probably some very good lawyers, is the fact that there are different traditions in copyright. There are the countries which are under copyright law, the countries which are under authority law, and the country which has no any kind of copyright law. Okay, and in fact, from my analysis of the situation, the country with authorized law, we are a very large number of them, in fact. Roughly speaking, I go very fast. All Europe, beside UK, all Latin America, Japan, Korea. The country without copyright, as far as all that has to be checked by professional lawyers, it's Russia, China, and India. By no tradition, they can copy anything, you see. And okay, so on this issue, I already have studied this topics about the case of France. Under French law, when we sign a copyright agreement, in fact, it's illegal. In which case, I go very fast, but in each case, we can even sue the publisher for having published our work, because it has no value what you have signed. No, my proposal is that we should talk to good lawyers at international level, because one of the problems, there is no international copyright law very clear, and try to make some cases like that. It's a question to put some pressure on the publishers.
Sorry, Marie, but we have to be brief. You make a very valid point, and actually it has been pointed out to us, and we bear in mind that we probably should involve a very good international lawyer early on. Yeah.
Microphone. Microphone.
I started to fill up your...
Could you identify yourself?
I'm Mina Taisha from Israel. I started to fill up the questionnaire that you passed, and I realized that I'm hesitating on one point, and I wonder what you have in mind. How far back you're going to go? 19th century, 18th century, 16th century.
There is no quality for me.
In principle, as far as we can.
Yeah, I think that's the best we can answer. We should try to go as far as we can, because
Yes, you have to work out what resources are required. You start with the easy start.
But maybe easier is the order because there is no publishing rights.
No, it's not easier. It's much harder to read.
Authors lose their right at the 70 years after their death. So for instance, when you go back to 18th century and before, you already have things that are published more or less the current standards and can easily be etc. But it's not very interesting, for instance, to actually the first 20 years of the world and which is the rest of the part.
Question.
Alexey Ustinov from Russia, Russian Academy of Sciences. Our Russian libraries are not so good as libraries in Europe or US. That's why probably we have better digital libraries. Only one problem of these libraries are illegal. It's easily possible to download millions of books. If you know simple recipe, what do you know about all these libraries? What do you think about all these libraries?
I think they are useful, but I don't recommend them.
We cannot build on something illegal, and everything has to be figured out legally. I mean, that's for sure.
On a lighter note, let me say that I tried to search my own book on the Russian library and it was not there and I was unhappy. That meant that my book is not popular. And last year my friend told me that now it is there. So.
Just a question of time.
There's a question there. And
Gert-Martin, USA. I am curious as to the political implications of having a World Digital Mathematics Library. For example, I do not know the situation in my country, but I can imagine the publishers have a lobby for our government that would perhaps influence, say, funding of mathematics for such a digital library created and created some economic pressure toward their business. I'd be interested in comments from the panel. Do they think that this is not an issue? Briefly, how is it going to affect funding, government funding, if we have a World Digital Mathematics Library?
In several countries, including the US, there already is, not with respect to mathematics, but in biology, where it's a much bigger issue, there are already legal, obligations to make sure that research that is publicly funded by public money is publicly available and accessible. In the UK also there. I mean, I don't know the fine details of that and I'm not an expert on that, but I think that countries actually are passing laws that would promote such libraries rather than hinder them.
I'm sorry, that doesn't address the question. The question is, let's suppose we have a library. How do we see it affecting government funding in the future? As a scenario, I could say the American Mathematical Society is starting to see a decrease in their revenues because of such a library, and for some reason it's going to want to encourage to fund those mathematicians who publish in that. This is, of course, a ridiculous scenario, but it's something I'm worried about.
The AMS and other publishing societies have implemented the moving wall and actually have not seen a decrease in revenue, is my understanding. That can be correct.
But there is no World Digital Mathematics Library today.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I addressed this in my presentation that we should talk with representatives of major publishers. I think the moving wall, of course, is something which they could agree to, but maybe they gain from the library. Assume the library, as it is constructed, will have basic service. There will not kind of supply of sophisticated other things. If this is done by some committed people who have access to this, and this can be, I think that's a scenario, could be used, maybe paid, if there is an obligation behind that, that the publisher use part of that not publicly available data so that they can create their own fancy web pages, link it to their own services, and once you have structured data, that's very easy. Get the full structured data, that's the complicated part. Yeah? So if we offer a kind of basic service only, but have everything available, then one can build on that basic service some extra thing, which maybe could be paid off. But that's one of the possibilities I was thinking about.
At the National Academy workshop, there were representatives from the National Science Foundation and the German counterpart. They were very supportive of the effort. I understand.
Okay, that's somewhat comforting.
Let me do another in front.
Zhang from the United States. The Mathematical Association of America with National Science Foundation of America had created a math digital library a while back. It was MathDL. It was part of push from the NSF, the National Science Foundation, which was for educational purposes, for different science disciplines. This was National Science Digital Library. I think that was the National Digital Science, I don't know, NDSL, I think maybe that was it. So in the digital library you are proposing, it's mainly oriented towards research, current math literature. Is there any way you see that combining with educational mathematics and resources combined in such a way? I mean, your vision is already grand and hard as it is, but going one-stop shop for all math needs, would that be at all a part of this vision someday?
I would think in the long term, yes, but in the short term, our objective at the moment is to address the research mathematics needs. At least that's my understanding.
I like to comment on that. I mean, if you add this kind of the big resource of books and articles maybe, you need a unique identifier for these tools to integrate that into the system. That creates tremendous more difficulties. I mentioned already that Math Reviews and Zentralblatt has indexed all the existing peer-reviewed research articles. There are identifiers. They could be used now, still extended, and so on. There's DOE, but creating all the other things creates completely extra difficulties, which at the moment I would not recommend to include them.
Someone who hadn't asked a question?
Just a short precision. Actually, there is an American digital library which has been created starting on the 1st of April 2013 by Robert Darton, who is a librarian of Harvard, and he has received Larry Lessig, who is a very famous lawyer, as you know. I mean, something exists in America which has already a lot of kind of few pages, so maybe you could at least rely on some of their experience. Maybe.
Well, they did this to try to compete with the Netherlands, and in some sense they are behind Europe. Well, in short, no.
I'm Tom Bancroft, I'm former president of the MAA about 15 years ago. Math Association of America, among other things, has put all of its publications into the JSTOR, which I think really provides a lot of the services with a rolling, what do they call a rolling wall. Again, JSTOR, which really is a great service, treated the math education as important as other kinds of research mathematics in terms of the, I don't know how JSTOR fits into your discussion here.
As an outsider not associated with the university, I have to pay for a JSTOR account or find some other means. So JSTOR is not as convenient as some other services.
What I'm asking is how JSTOR fits into the discussion today.
I think the panel is very good, but it's not the best solution.
One of the dangers that I think JSTOR points out is re-copyrighting of material that was done out of copyright. And that builds yet further complications.
Can you explain that a little more?
In the fact that JSTOR requires subscriptions to access its material.
Well, my point of view with my characteristics to explain for partners I would partner with. JSTOR.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Well, JSTOR is almost exactly what we want to do, except the fact that it's a subscription service. Apart from that, it is not for profit, so principles on much better ground than purely commercially oriented system that will die one day because they will lose their income, etc. JSTOR is almost perfect. Well, it has absolutely no features specific to math. So all the things we envision linked to mathematical knowledge cannot be built on top of JSTOR. And absolutely, it is a subscription service meant to do libraries. And if you look at the libraries that currently subscribe, there is an enormous amount that comes from Northern America. And I suppose the price are not compatible with all universities. And just I wanted to correct, I think that since the tragic death of Aaron Swartz, JSTOR changed its policy concerning public domain things, and now you can get. But we need to kill someone to get to that.
To JSTOR is extremely successful at a good number of things that it set out to do is a fine example of various things. But the mission of JSTOR is to avoid building libraries, which they were doing anyway, and it's much cheaper for the Mellon Foundation to set up JSTOR, for which they put up $90 million to start it, than to build the extra shelf space that people otherwise were demanding and which they felt obliged to cover. So the mission is totally different. As Thierry says, the mathematics stuff on there, which is very good in its way, is on the other hand rather inaccessible, even to those, say like me, at an institution that has very fine subscription to JSTOR. They work differently. It was set up in a very good business model by an economist. They've done a number of things right, but they aren't a simple model for a global digital platform, which you may not have asserted.
As Professor Olver said, is this going to complicate your plan because JSTOR exists? Does it change copyright problems?
I don't believe so, in the sense that if JSTOR has a journal run which is sequestered by them, then the only thing, the obvious thing that a global library can do is try and duplicate something. That's what happens with anyone, unless you're willing to pay them enough to ransom whatever it is in the way of data that you want. And that's a perfectly viable business proposition too, in many cases, possibly. It depends on negotiation. If you can negotiate with JSTOR or publishers to allow you what you need to do, or what you want to do with data that is certainly theirs legally.
So I understand you want to make it free for the public. So, but I still don't understand your business model. How do you go to, or what's the idea?
As Stephen Wolfram said a couple of days ago, there is no business model. This is a public good. So the funding sources...
But also for public good, you need some business model.
That's right. There's a sustainability model, yes.
Okay.
But there is no business model.
Okay, so this works. So what is your sustainability model?
Well, my answer, what is the sustainability model of your library? What is the sustainability model of your university library or of your department library? You manage the community, the academic community manage to have to get the literature they need for the work and to storage and to provide it for free to all the users, to all the patrons. And okay, we are in a different world. We have to find things in another way. But there is a lot of money that is put into libraries, and
that can come here.
I don't understand why it should not be possible to redirect some of that money.
I just asked what is the model.
But I mean,
funding agencies.
There are lots
Instead
of
of funding libraries, they fund this
initiative.
I think it's a difficult question. And I would not dare to have a model already right now. So we start with, I mentioned that, having accurate and almost complete data, having an index fine and everything is secure, archived, but not working on that means extra efforts. And these kind of things could be somehow interesting for commercial publishers to combine with their own service. That's some of the things we just discussed, that there could be a possible model, so they pay somehow for a consortium which runs these digital mass libraries. So kind of derived services, where our libraries, whatever, institutions would like to have it. Governments would like to want to evaluate their researchers. We know that, and maybe they use it, but these data are not available immediately. You can extract it, and that could be a possible way.
And universities buying subscription.
That's what we actually, I think, not want.
So I agree with everybody here that there is a lot of money that is going into providing literature to researchers right now. And I think finding the right solution that will work is something that we have to work at the same time. That's, I think, part of the administrative and community aspects that Patrick was mentioning earlier. So we don't have a business model yet, but there are many other things that have to be solved, and there certainly are money streams. It will have to make sense to everybody.
We have about 5 minutes left according to the clock. Are there some further remarks, questions?
It's just a remark to the day we will have that. The day any papers published in mathematics will be available for free to everyone. This will boost a lot the industry. Because today the industry, they cannot afford to pay the subscription. Our library have problem, but our business companies, especially some small-scale companies, startups also, who are very innovative, who need to have access to the maths done just today, we can't. And even someone retired, a good mathematician, but who still wants to work, but is retired, he has no access. A young student who is not yet completing the system, who is not in a place where he has access to good facilities, that will change the world. That will change the business also. They will get it for free. Probably will appreciate that.
would like to suggest to the panel that even though this is contrary to some of the goals stated in the World Digital Mathematics Library, they at least consider models based that currently exist, like iTunes or Napster, as methods for going ahead and at least jump-starting the digital mathematics library so that eventually it can become available to all. Not, I think there's some good ideas to be found there.
Yes, there probably are, and also in the music business in the indexing, which is an example of a place where somebody essentially started things, music brains.
As long as someone on the panel is thinking about it.
I think it's important, although the discussion is concentrated more on getting the literature, the access, the open access. There's a lot more in the vision of the digital math library than just having the literature there. A lot is already there, but to build on that, applications that enable you to search for theorems or ideas, find that something you're interested in showed up in a paper in 1920 in a completely different area, concepts, indexes of theorems and formulas and so on. So these are all part of the vision of the digital math library. It's much more than just a collection of papers that are freely available.
If we want to contribute more comments or questions, is there an email address or something we could contact?
So there, the IMU CEIC has ready to start up, and I think we will be starting up, a blog on the World Digital Mathematics Library. This will be as soon as I get back home and have some time, I will enable the blog with maybe an initial post or two, and we will announce it as we best can. You can announce it too to the community, and we invite your input into the process. We need the community input. We need the community buy-in. Without the support of the community, all the efforts that the people on the working group, the people on the IMU are making will not succeed. So that's very important.
Peter, we know where that blog will be. It will be off the IMU panel section of the CEIC website.
Okay, IMU CEIC. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, one more question.
Yeah, hi, Sudhir Gupta from Mumbai here. This question may be somewhat tangential, but I was wondering if with this World Digital Library, you would have some kind of quality control or something like that. In other words, I do see, unfortunately, that there are many so-called open access journals which take money from authors to publish, and a large number of them are just sheer junk. I mean, they will probably publish anything so long as people are willing to pay for it. And there are many who are willing to pay for that, and there is even a lot of plagiarism and so on and so forth. And in fact, in my view, a mathematician shouldn't have to pay for publishing. I mean, because that just brings in all kinds of corruption into the system. And perhaps WDML could set up some kind of a standards so that, it weeds out these undesirable elements. I don't know if you have some thoughts on this.
So, this is a very good question. And it's not so easy to answer. If we set the standard as anything formally published, of course, we can say that anything formally published by a group is formally published. So the way we try to tackle this problem in UDML is that UDML is very strongly linked to the European Mathematical Society, and there will be a scientific advisory board. And we do have some rules in the scientific quality of journals before accepting to have a journal there. And so we can rely on some scientific board, and we refer in journals in some way. In some sense. We rely on journals referring as long as the journal itself does the proper referring according to our scientific board. That's the best
I'd like to add, I mean, again, CBMAS, Zentralblatt, and Math Values, they do this every year. I mean, no, they check, and if there is no clear peer reviewing, or we are doubtful, we stop indexing, or we not even start indexing them until they have proved to be continuously, be secure, have good papers. So that is difficult, I know that, but it happens already. So this could be what I said at the beginning. It could be a guideline. Look at them, start with this, and then develop your own criteria, building on that, and in the communication process with maybe a certificate work.
What I mean to say, can we just put a stop to the paid journal?
I didn't get you. Could you speak louder without microphone?
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering if we could put a stop to the paid journals, because somehow...
No, we stop indexing.
Yeah, you do?
Yes,
you
sure.
don't index any journal which takes money from...
No. When we have cases where there's clearly plagiarism, they don't answer our questions, they have no regular publication, the editor-in-chief plagiarizes by himself, so then we stop indexing. That happens.
The IMU CIC has a document on best practices for journals, and though I would say very few journals meet all of the best practices, this is a gold standard that one can apply to evaluate journals, and I encourage you to take a look at that. I think, in view of the time, we are 3 or 4 minutes past 7:30. I'd like to thank very much all of our panelists, and also thank the audience for a very interesting discussion.